Was that nose been ding this whole time?
No, that's been since it's been in your hands.
Of course. All right. Well, let's go back to the beginning of this board, okay? Because first of all, this is the board that you won the title on. So this board, the origin story of this board, I think is interesting, and I think it's pretty cool that the way it all came about. And the funny part is too, I didn't even really realize that you're riding this board until the very end of the day at Trestles.
I told you I was gonna ride that board. I asked you to go get it, remember?
No, so okay, so let's go back to that. So the beginning of this board, like a month before the contest probably, you're like, oh, hey, I'm going to California, I'm gonna go surf Trestles for a few days, there's some waves.
Yep.
But I'm gonna bring my boards, but can you have your guys over there just make me a few extra boards just to try, for whatever reason, right?
Yep, this one I actually liked. I remember riding it. I rode it one day when it was really small, and I was like, oh, that board actually has a little bit of speed for how small the waves were.
Right.
And then, but when I was there, it was like really pumping lower, or like bigger lowers, and then really small. There wasn't really any
Yeah, there was not that in between, so it was like...
And so I was riding Power Tiger, and I was like, oh, I'll probably ride Power Tigers, most likely.
And then like little carbon or epoxy when it was super small.
Riding the carbon boards when it was small.
And so the whole thing with the Red Tiger, I feel like too, that's important to understand is like like when we were working on this board, the whole thing this board was in mind for was kind of Trestles. At the end of the year, right? Like that was kind of like, hey, let's figure out a board that like when this all comes down.
Yes.
So just working towards that. Anyway, so you got the boards. You had some feedback like, yeah, it felt a little small, felt okay, but not like, oh, these boards, this was insane. Yeah. And then you had something about it kind of like lifting a little bit. You said it felt like it.
Well, I rode it when there was more waves, and the Red Tiger has a little bit of a bigger tail block than the Power Tiger, so it has a lot of lift in the tail. So especially when you go into a big carve, it pushes back a lot harder. It gets you like it flattens the board out a little bit. So I didn't love the feeling of that. But then when the comp kind of came to, it ended up being that medium size. So, and I remember surfing before the comp, and I was like, my Power Tigers are like sitting too much in the water for what I want. I'm like not getting enough like flow out of them. And then I didn't have any Red Tigers with me because
so let's just go back to that. So this is the thing. So I fly over to California Wednesday night. The contest is scheduled. Not scheduled, but like everybody's talking. It's gonna run on Friday.
Yep.
The swell. It's the only day of swell for the whole window. Blah blah blah. I fly over there on Wednesday night. Stay down in Encinitas at my friend's house. Go to the factory in Oceanside on Thursday morning, and I'm hanging out, talking to my guys, whatever. Then I get a call from you. Hey, is there any boards in the factory there? Those ones I brought back. So it's like this is 24 hours until the contest is going to start. Yeah, but are there any Red Tigers?
The reason they were there because after my previous trip, I had finished the trip and I went, okay, I'm not going to ride any of these boards in the comp. None of them felt like, in my mind, I was just like, no, I'm going to have better, I'll have a really good board. Let's just be clear,
this is the world title contest we're talking about, right?
Yep. And then
so I go, wait a minute, you don't have any Red Tigers with you? And
I had Red Tigers.
I have one.
But it's really
old.
Yeah.
It's really old and it's kind of worn out. And I was just like, in my head, I was just like screaming at you. And I'm like, okay, he's got the biggest, like most pressured event of his life, probably kind of in a way, tomorrow. I'm not going to say a word. Like usually I'd be like, are you kidding me? And I was just like, just control yourself. And I just was like, okay, let me see what we have here.
So I looked back at the clips for the color of the pad of which one I liked. Right. And then I realized I was like, oh, it's the one with the black and yellow on the pad.
So TJ, that works for me, I go, TJ, do we have these boards here? He's like, yeah, let me see. Let me look. So he comes back in with 2 boards, and they're both signed. You've already returned them back to the factory, autographed them, 2 of them, and he's like, here, these 2. And I sent you pictures of all this one or this one, and you're like, oh, the one with this pad. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so that was like 11 in the morning on Thursday or something. So I jump in my car, drive up to Trestles, drive up to San Clemente, meet you. Here's your board. See you later. Good luck. Still kept my mouth shut about like, are you kidding with me? I've been calling you for a month going like, you have all the boards you need, right? You're all set. No, you don't need anything else, right? No, I'm all good.
Yeah, and then I rode it that afternoon on like 3 waves. And I was like, oh, it feels really good. It feels like the other one I have, but better.
Did you tell me that? I can't even remember.
I don't know. But then I rode it the next morning before the comp at uppers, and then I was like, okay, yeah, this board feels good. It's fast. It's sharp.
So then I came over to your house that morning.
Yeah.
Friday morning. You got to go down to the beach at 11 or something, so we all were over there earlier. And like, I just kind of didn't ask you any questions about boards because I figured like you had it figured out. So I didn't really know at that point, I don't think, like what board you're going to ride or anything. And then sure enough, that was your board.
Yeah. And then I rode that board and it worked well and it did its job.
So the cool thing for me is like, I never touched this board. And our guys in Oceanside, DJ, who's been shaping for me for like 12 years, is our head shaper, and he oversees anybody else that's working for us. They do all of our glassing. They do everything. And when you ordered these boards just to have these extras, it was like they built them in 3 days. You're like, I'm going on Wednesday. It was like a Monday or something.
Yep.
They built these boards in 3 days at our factory in Oceanside. And then just is so cool how it turned out. Like, what it means to me is like, you can go somewhere, and you've gotten boards from Australia that you've really liked.
Yeah,
you've gotten boards in different places.
I rode boards from Oz and Bell's before.
Yeah, so it's
great.
so cool.
Yeah.
But like, to actually win a world title, and then for those guys,
yeah,
to me it just validates like these guys do such good work. They're so in tune with what we're doing that like they can make a board that someone could win.
And to keep it close to like the original shape that we designed together.
Totally,
you know?
yeah.
But the funny thing with the Red Tiger though is the original Red Tiger was from Oceanside as well.
That California like thick, chunky version.
The smaller one.
And we were doing them through, they did a Dark Arts one too that you had.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, But anyway, it's cool to see how they can keep the design.
Yeah, for me that was just super cool, like to validate like, hey, we work with like such good people. They're so tuned in that like you could actually grab a board that you've ridden 3 times, maybe 4 times, and go take it out in a heat that conceivably those are the most important like or pressured heats you may have ever surfed. I don't know. And then to have it work and to just freaking walk up the beach and just win a contest with that thing like that and win the world title. Pretty sick.
Yeah, so it's pretty awesome to be able to do that.
And there it is. So those guys, I really appreciate them, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. And it's pretty sick.
Thank you everyone for the hard work.
DJ.
That went into this beautiful machine.
She's a beauty. So that's it. The story of the Red Tiger that won the world title. And the rails feel pretty good, don't they?
Yeah, they're
just like you said though. It's like a little thinner feeling.
So this Red Tiger was a little bit different.
We changed.
I asked to get them a little more tacked and a little more refined.
I dropped the rail like a hair down here, and that was it.
Which I think made it like hold a little bit better.
Yeah, it felt good, but it still had that flow. You could see it. It was like still flowing with the foam here, but it had a little more hold when you really wanted to push on it. So there it is.
I think that board has 6 sessions on it.
6. You only rode, how many waves did you ride in the final? Total?
5 sessions on it.
And but you rode like 2 waves in your first heat?
Yeah, and then 3.
3, so you rode 5 waves to win a world title. Pretty sick. So that's it.
Yep.
The end.
Clap.